Hi, everyone. You might have heard the name of our next guest, but he's done so much in the news recently that I'd like to give him a little bit of background. His name is Joshua Wong. At age 15, he founded his student group, Scholarism, to protest a new Beijing sympathetic curriculum. He later became a globally known political activist when Scholarism held a 100,000 person rally to protest it. He grew to further prominence with Scholarism's role in the 2014 umbrella movement that pushed for universal suffrage of Hong Kongers to vote for their chief executive. His group orchestrated a large student boycott that contributed to the 100,000 person occupation of Causeway Bay for 77 days. He was nominated for Time Person of the Year and covered in a Netflix documentary about the umbrella movement. 2 years later, he co-founded a political party, Demosisto, dedicated to promoting self-determination and localism in Hong Kong. He and his party began garnering international support for the current Hong Kong protests that were initiated after a controversial extradition bill. Longtime listeners may ask, why is the Startup Societies Foundation covering political protests? Isn't their slogan, "Don't argue, build"? That's a fair point. We normally favor non-electoral solutions to policy problems, but Demosisto and Joshua Wong are pushing a crucial element of the Startup Society mission, localism. It is crucial to decentralize policy decisions down to the local level to make the best policy decisions possible and allow a great amount of governance innovation. With this podcast, like Joshua and Demosisto, SSF does not support Hong Kong independence or separatism. We simply believe citizens should make their own decisions. This also does not in any way condone the violence orchestrated by some Hong Kong protesters, but their actions should not overshadow the desire for a city to control its destiny. Even if one does not support their actions, it's important to know their story. A little context for the podcast. We scheduled it right before he was barred for running for a Hong Kong office. He has been attending back-to-back speaking engagements for the last week, giving interviews for international news organizations. We caught him as he was literally walking the streets of Hong Kong to his next speaking engagement. So the audio isn't perfect, but we hope you will enjoy listening to a young man who has already made the news, maybe history. Joshua, how are you?
Yeah, hi, I'm fine.
Excellent. You've had a whirlwind of a week. You've recently been barred from elections in Hong Kong. What is motivating that decision?
We strongly aware the political censorship and the suppression of Beijing to Hong Kong people, especially how they hope to bar me to run for office, censoring out from the ballot. But it just proved how Beijing manipulates the election in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that seems like the case. What do you think Beijing's problem with your political party is? What are the long-term goals of your political party?
We are just asking for free election and genuine autonomy of Hong Kong. Hong Kong people deserve to rule Hong Kong by themselves instead of being manipulated or influenced by Beijing authorities.
So, in your view, what does Hong Kong localism look like? What would happen in an independent Hong Kong? What policies would it implement?
I'm not the one advocating on Hong Kong independence, but I believe Hong Kong should be the place for freedom, democracy, and genuine autonomy. And I hope Hong Kong people can decide their way of living instead of being dominated by the authorities.
So you do not believe, and you've said this repeatedly, that you do not believe in independence. If that's the case, how can a system work? Is two systems, one country savable at this point?
If Beijing recognized and didn't broke their promise, Hong Kong people can enjoy freedom and democracy with universal suffrage, which means the chief executive of Hong Kong can be elected by people instead of selected by central government.
So after all of these issues with the elections, do you still believe that elections are the best way to achieve political change? Won't Beijing just simply tilt things in their favor continually?
No matter enter the institution or outside the institution, no matter vote or protest on street, both are significantly important to show our discontent and our belief to the government.
And there's certainly a lot of discontent with the government. As the protests continue to rage, some have had issues with some of the violence of the protesters. Is that possibly a way that could turn off potential supporters of the movement?
We strongly experience the solidarity and unity of Hong Kongers. how Beijing and Hong Kong government turned Hong Kong from a global city to a police state with crackdown on protests, just trigger people use force to have self-defense and to protect themselves. But I would say that all the tension just triggered by Beijing instead of triggered by Hong Kongers.
Interesting. So Hong Kong, in order to be a true political entity, to have self-determination, it can't just focus on elections. It has to have its own civil society. What are some good civil society initiatives that Hong Kongers can create in order to create not just an independent politics, but an independent culture?
We hope to strengthen the civil society of Hong Kong, and Hong Kong people are not economic animal anymore. We are the one recognize ourselves as the citizen of Hong Kong and Hong Kongers, and with our sense of belongings and identity, we will go forward to continue fight for a brighter future.
So Hong Kong has often separated itself or determined its identity based on its legal system based in the UK and sort of capitalist political economy. But your political party says that they're trying to battle capitalist hegemony. Are those two ideas compatible, or is there some sort of mix of the two?
So in Hong Kong, of course, we are under the capitalist society, but more important is how to fight for social justice and to enhance the upward mobility, as how the red capital and pro-Beijing camp, how they, with the red capital background tycoons dominated of young generation, it also triggered more and more people to do the street, and Hong Kong people hope to determine their own future.
So this frustration that many Hong Kongers are feeling about upward mobility, do you think it's being felt in Chinese cities on the mainland as well?
I hope first Hong Kong and next China. I hope one day China can also enjoy democracy. But now, how we can genuinely or guarantee Hong Kong people to have universal suffrage is our difficult uphill battle. But we still hope to overcome the threat from Beijing.
Do you think because of Hong Kong's special status, and it was one of the first places where these protests occurred, that other special zones, other special economic zones in China would be the first for these different protests to take place?
How we recognize Hong Kong as a global city and we stand on the forefront to confront the authoritarian rule. I think that's the reason why, with the free flow of information and how people strong political awareness is just trigger the movement and the uprising happening.
And what about other parts of the world outside of China? Where do you think that the principles of your party can be best felt?
With the Belt and Road Initiative being introduced by China in European countries, how the sharp power expansion in Australia and Canada, and the trade war chaos between US and China, I believe now is the time for more people around the world to be aware that Hong Kong people fight for their own future. It's not only their future, but also for the world future. When Beijing has no respect on international liberal order and universal value, we need to stand with solidarity to confront the crackdown on human rights.
That might be a hard pill for some people to swallow, because a lot of people view the Belt and Road Initiative, even if there is what they call predatory debt and political strings attached, it has a way to improve the economy of many of these areas. How can you convey to many of the people that would benefit from the Belt and Road in other countries that it would actually be against their interest?
Yeah, and Belt and Road Initiative is just the plan and the method for Beijing to take advantage on European countries to increase the successful model of the China model. So I would say that how to let the world know the failure of the China model is the responsibility of Hong Kongers.
So do you think that China is doing something on a smaller scale closer to Hong Kong? It seems that they're trying to position Shenzhen at a higher level than Hong Kong by increasing their level of economic reforms to grow Shenzhen faster. Do you believe they will succeed?
With how the manipulation of Beijing and the separate economic entity is only guaranteed in Hong Kong, I don't believe Shenzhen can replace Hong Kong.
So what is the quality of Hong Kong that is irreplaceable by other special economic zones in China?
Hong Kong is the only place with free flow of information under the rule of Beijing and the only places without the Great Firewall.
Definitely there is a lot of control from the Great Firewall that's well documented. Have you seen issues with the Great Firewall or the new Chinese credit system?
How Beijing suggested or recommended to imply the social credit system, not only in mainland China, but even in Hong Kong, just will spread and how they hope to erode on the one country, two system.
And do you believe that the U.S. trade war will impact these protests? Do you believe the United States would use them as a bargaining chip for greater concessions?
With more support around the world, we hope to seek for more allies in the Western world to increase the bargaining chips of Hong Kongers, and that's our goal.
And on a personal note, you're obviously taking a lot of personal risk by committing all these actions. You've been in prison multiple times, and Beijing has no indication that they will back down. Are you afraid for your life, for your freedom in the medium of the long term?
I've been arrested for 8 times, been jailed for 3 times. What's the price I paid really for? Compared to how others have been locked up in prison for 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. The price I paid is just a small piece of cake.
Obviously, the cost is very high, but for many who are very sympathetic to your views, they aren't willing to go the extra mile. What can motivate them to take some of the sacrifices that you're taking in order to make this possible?
As Hong Kongers, here is the place we're born, we live, and we love. And that's the reason for how Hong Kong people ready joined into the fight. And with the crackdown of the government, it's just turned a whole generation of youngsters to be dissidents.
So obviously, your party is pushing for the referendum. It's pushing for a self-determined Hong Kong. But what happens after Hong Kong is more self-determined? What types of policies will it search for once it achieves that?
And that's determined by Hong Kong people. And we hope in Hong Kong, after we enjoy universal suffrage and self-determination, not only political freedom, but even socio-economic freedom can be achieved by how we enhance social reform to more closer to social justice.
Some of our leaders are not super familiar with the structure of the Hong Kong government. Can you go over what the process is for electing the chief executive and how that tilts the favor of things towards Beijing?
The chief executive of Hong Kong is selected by a small circle committee of 12,000 election committee members that is dominated by the pro-Beijing camp, which proves that they never listen to our voice.
So on a personal note again, what motivated you to join the protest movement? You actually participated in one of the first protest movements of this century, the Hong Kong high-speed rail. How did that influence your trajectory to now?
My political awareness started from the anti-high railway movement. I realized how the grand capital domination and suppression will affect the living of Hong Kong. And as a Hong Konger, I just want to contribute more and let my future can be determined on my hands instead of determined by those upper-class elites.
In terms of the powers that be that you're up against, there are many camps that say that China will be the hegemon of the next century. Their infrastructure projects will dominate Eurasia, and they will become the global power as the United States recedes. Others say that China is a bubble, that many of their investments are inflated, and that their economic numbers aren't as good as people make them out to be. Out of those two options, where do you see China?
China intends to be the superpower, dominated the world order, but without the respect on human rights, democracy, and freedom. I don't believe they are qualified to be the leaders of the world.
So in order to make make sure that there is balance in Southeast Asia? Does it make sense for you and your party to go to nearby neighbors in Japan and Korea and Thailand and make a network that can keep this power in check?
And that's why we hope to seek for global solidarity to stand with Hong Kong. Not only Western countries, even Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Malaysia, or etc. We hope more and more politicians or civil society can enhance, interact, or collaborate with Hong Kong democracy movement.
Things seem to be continuing to go on and even escalate. And there has been talks of tanks from Beijing parked in nearby Shenzhen. What will you tell the people in your movement if there is an actual military presence, an actual military, possibly invasion of Hong Kong? What will you tell them?
Tiananmen Square massacre is not the way out in Hong Kong. I think that's the responsibility for world leaders to send a clear signal to President Xi. Bloodshed must not happen in Hong Kong.
That's true. Maybe that might not be the most realistic option for China. But if that's the case, what option do you think they will take?
Listen to our voice. Give us back the right to a free election. That's the promise in the Sino-British Joint Declaration.
No, I'm not saying what they should do. I'm saying if China knows they cannot have another Tiananmen Square, but they want to stop this movement from happening, what is their likely next step?
They have no option. Their only way out is to give us back the right that we deserve.
But China, unlike other countries around the world, they're not as accountable to their local stakeholders, their citizens. Why do they care so much about having bloodshed? They've demonstrated in the past they're perfectly willing to do that.
Yeah, and we already successfully forced the government to withdraw the bill on September after 2 million people took to the street, which empower us to continue the fight until the day we enjoy democracy.
So, what are your personal next steps and the next steps for your party in the next 2 weeks or so?
I will continue to engage in international advocacy and campaign on street and hope the voice of Hong Kong people being heard in the global community.
And so we're ending in the next minute or so. So I want to take this moment for you to say what type of call to action your party and your movement say to the world.
Hong Kong is not only a global city. Here is the protest city with people determined to fight for freedom and democracy under the threat of Beijing. And I urge people around the world, even we might have different cultural background or historical path, work with our solidarity and our belief on universal value. I just hope people around the world can stand with Hong Kong, support our demand to ask for free elections. And I hope one day Hong Kong is just like your country or city, the place with democracy. The government can be elected by people, and people have no fear from the government. The freedom from fear is what we cherish.
Well, Joshua, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're all really awaiting what happens, and we hope you the best, and we hope for a free Hong Kong. Thank you.